I was bred for precision. My kind does not squander words, nor waste effort, nor fail in judgment. We are the intellect of the Galactic Armies, the archivists of dominance, the species who conquered 12 spiral arms before humanity even discovered indoor plumbing. And yet, as I recount this mission, I am forced to admit, something small, something primitive slipped through our assumptions like a sharp stone in the boot. This is how it began, with arrogance, certainty, and an error that still echoes in me. The council summoned me with little ceremony. Earth was designated a Category F species, F, of course, for foolish. Their planetary broadcasts made that clear. Endless contests of mating dances judged by peers, loud songs designed to rattle bone and mind, a culture revolving around cooking flesh on open flame and then documenting the act with glowing handheld rectangles. Their proudest invention appeared to be the emoji, a pictorial regression into hieroglyphs, smiling circles, grinning piles of excrement, yellow faces expressing every possible emotional lapse. A species obsessed with hamburgers, gasoline, and reality television could not possibly pose a threat to us. Our orders were simple: extract one specimen, study its anatomy, extract patterns of thought, confirm that their infantile brains posed no military risk, and return before they invented something embarrassing like interstellar karaoke. A team was chosen, 5 researchers, myself as commander and narrator. We required no warriors. The notion was laughable. Humanity was already conquered in spirit. They simply hadn't received the memo. Target selection proved amusing. Thousands of humans were monitored from orbit, and after much jesting we agreed upon one lone figure, a male of middle years, dwelling temporarily in the forest beside a river. He had no obvious companions, no visible technology beyond firewood, a small blade, and simple cloth coverings. He was seated before a fire, staring at it with an expression our analysts cataloged as contemplative brooding, likely primitive stress response. His facial growth suggested poor grooming. The others joked that perhaps he was attempting to imitate their subculture known as lumberjack chic. He cooked meat on a rod, something called fish, turning it with slow precision. He appeared harmless, perhaps even dull. The abduction was conducted at night. Our field projector cast a paralysis net over him in seconds. His body stiffened, eyes flickering briefly as we ascended. I recorded an observation. Even immobilized, the corners of his mouth twitched. We debated whether this was a muscular spasm or an unconscious expression. One assistant remarked, "Perhaps he dreams of his fire." Another laughed and added, "Or of his glowing rectangle. They're always tapping at them." We all chuckled, satisfied with the capture. Inside the vessel, I observed him more closely. His body was heavier than anticipated for his frame, layers of dense fiber and hardened muscle beneath the organic wrapping. The clothing smelled faintly of wood smoke and some substance we later identified as bug spray. His eyes remained shut, but the twitch persisted, a half-smile ghosting across his expression. "It is unsettling," one technician muttered. I reminded them, humans are primitive. Their facial muscles are chaotic, uncontrolled, endlessly twitching in what they call sarcasm. There was nothing to fear. Still, the details accumulated. He wore a belt carrying small tools, rope, a compact blade, a device that produced flame instantly, as if he did not trust his fire-making skills to chance. I dismissed these as trinkets, yet I made notes in the archive, an odd redundancy for a supposedly relaxed camper. While we cataloged his possessions, conversation drifted to humanity's peculiarities. Their compulsion to document themselves endlessly with cameras, to shout opinions across digital voids, to elect leaders through a process more chaotic than natural disasters. One researcher remarked, "This one could be of the variety known as Florida Man." We all laughed. My report would later note, "We believe Florida Man to be an anomaly." He was not. The central conflict seemed obvious at the time, our supremacy versus his ignorance. We were the dispassionate scientists, wielders of knowledge spanning galaxies, staring down at an animal who still struggled with basic mathematics. And yet, something in the rhythm of his breathing troubled me. Immobilized as he was, he breathed slow and deep, not rapid and panicked. His pulse remained steady. He was not unconscious, not entirely. He was waiting. When one assistant drew a scanner to his temple, the human's eye opened just a fraction, enough to glimmer in the sterile light. Not wide, not startled, merely a slit through which the smile seemed to grow. I instructed the assistant to continue. My voice remained steady, yet an echo of uncertainty clung to my tone. He should not have been able to move. He should not have been able to look at us at all. We restrained his limbs more tightly, layered additional paralysis fields across his nervous system. I doubled the sedation waves. He will sleep now, I announced, as much to reassure myself as to inform the team. Yet the smile lingered, a crooked shape mocking our confidence. Our humor faltered. We found ourselves discussing his species again, but the laughter was thinner. Their addiction to fast food, to microwave burritos, to a bizarre obsession with creatures called cats. They worshipped them, one technician sneered. Small predators living in their homes, tolerated because they are adorable. Another added, they created entire networks to share images of these beasts. They call them memes. We try to laugh, but the subject returned to his stillness, his uncanny patience, the hint of awareness in those partially open eyes. At last, I decided to end the session. We shall begin testing tomorrow. He is secure. He is unconscious. He is... I paused, regarding the faint curl at the edge of his lips. Manageable. I filed the report with the council, dismissing any concerns. But when I departed the chamber, I allowed myself a final glance. The firelight smell still clung to him. His breathing was calm, his chest rising with the rhythm of someone in control. Most disturbing of all, the smile had not vanished. He was waiting, calculating, perhaps even enjoying this. I told myself it was nothing. A muscle twitch, a meaningless gesture. The human was harmless, primitive, pathetic. And yet, even as I composed my official record, the image burned behind my eyes. A man who should have been paralyzed, who should have been unconscious, lying silent beneath our restraints and smiling. It was the smile that haunted me, the smile that hinted our conflict had already begun, and perhaps we had misjudged who held the advantage. The first indication that matters were not proceeding according to schedule arrived with a sound. Not a shout, not the gasping breath of panic I had rehearsed hearing, but something entirely different, a deliberate clearing of the throat. The human, our prize specimen, was awake. He did not convulse against the restraints. He did not scream or wail. He simply opened his eyes as though we had disturbed his nap, adjusted his shoulders against the examination platform, and smiled at us like a host greeting tardy guests. For a moment no one moved. My assistants glanced at me, silently demanding confirmation that what they saw was not possible. He should have been inert. Our paralysis field was triple layered, the sedatives strong enough to keep larger predators in a stupor for cycles. Yet here he was, flexing his fingers experimentally, the shackles responding with a faint clink. His voice was unhurried when he finally spoke. Morning already? You folks don't believe in coffee breaks, do you? The remark puzzled my team. I knew the term coffee from the cultural archives, a bitter stimulant brewed from ground beans, consumed obsessively by the species to mask their perpetual exhaustion. The casualness with which he referenced it was unnerving. I reminded myself this was nothing more than primitive humor, a nervous reflex. Still, there was no tremor in his voice, no trace of fear. I stepped forward, projecting authority. You are under analysis, human. Do not attempt resistance. We are vastly beyond your comprehension. He tilted his head, studying me with unsettling calm. Leader, then, nervous about appearances. You're in charge, but you'd rather be behind the curtain, yes? My assistants shifted uneasily. He turned his gaze to the technician beside me. You're the one actually holding the ship together, always double-checking the calibrations. Without you, they'd float into a star. I interrupted sharply, demanding silence, but the damage was done. My crew shifted under his words, their confidence punctured by the uncanny precision. The human reclined against the restraints, as if he had all the time in the world. Funny thing about groups, he continued softly. You can read them if you know where to look. I attempted to re-establish order. You are a primitive species. Do not presume to analyze us. He chuckled, the sound low and irritatingly assured. Primitive, sure. Fire, will, hamburgers, all that. But you'd be amazed what you can learn by listening to footsteps in the dark. I was awake on your way up, you know. Could tell from a vibration when you change course. You've got stabilizers that kick half a second late on the left flank. Must drive you nuts. It was a lie, I assure myself. A lucky guess. Yet my assistant's eyes widened, confirming the flaw he had just identified. I felt an irritation rising, but beneath it was a current of unease. You were not awake, I snapped. The sedatives ensured unconsciousness. He shrugged as though discussing the weather. Maybe. Or maybe your sedatives aren't designed for someone who's had enough military-issue painkillers to tranquilize a bull. The word landed with a weight I did not care for. Military. This was no fisherman, no idle wanderer. This was something else. My mind began cataloging possibilities, calculating risks. Yet I could not reveal doubt. I lifted my voice with deliberate calm. Your resistance is meaningless. We are your superiors. The galaxy mocks your kind for good reason. You are undisciplined, irrational, and laughably fragile. He smiled wider, eyes glinting. Irrational, sure, but fragile? That's where you're wrong. We've got a knack for surviving things we shouldn't. Ask history. Ask the Ice Ages. Ask microwave burritos. The reference slid past me until one of my assistants whispered that burritos were a form of compressed food cylinder, often cooked in a radiation oven for convenience. The crew exchanged bewildered looks. The man noticed, of course. See, you don't get it. We joke when we're scared. We smile when we're cornered. You think it's weakness, but it's how we win time. How we make you underestimate us. I despised the confidence in his tone, the way he spoke as though conducting the interview. Yet something about his poise was undeniable. He leaned forward slightly, the restraints creaking under the shift. Tell me, he asked, how many cameras do you have in here? 4? No, 5. One tucked up there in the corner. Bit of a blind spot on the left side. I bet you thought you were subtle. The word were knives. My crew stiffened. I had ordered that installation myself. He should not have known, unless he had studied the reflection in the polished metal walls. Unless he had counted the tiny hums of energy and memorized their cadence. Unless he was something more. I rally my voice. You will cease this charade. You are confined, controlled, and irrelevant. Your brain is subject to our instruments. Soon we will know everything you are, and you'll be an entry in our archive. His smile vanished at last, replaced with something colder. You think you're running the test. You're not. You're the subjects. A chill passed through the chamber. He spoke with such certainty that even I felt the grip of doubt tighten. I gestured sharply for the technician to begin the scan, desperate to prove our dominance. Blue light arced across his skull, mapping the neural structures within. At once alarms flickered. His brain patterns were not chaotic, not primitive, but blindingly adaptive, fluctuating faster than our systems could track. He raised an eyebrow. Careful. That beam tickles the amygdala. The technician's hand trembled. I barked in order to continue, but inside I felt a hollowness opening. He should not know the word, let alone the sensation. And still he watched us with infuriating calm. Finally, he spoke again, voice steady as stone. I should be honest. I'm not just some camper. I'm ex-military. Spent years where silence meant survival. These days I test systems for weaknesses. Call it security, counterintelligence, whatever. Point is, I've been watching you since you brought me aboard. One of my assistants hissed through her teeth. I wanted to call his words bravado, empty intimidation. Yet the evidence pressed in on every side. His awareness of our systems, his composure under sedation, his unsettling accuracy in observation. I searched his face for a crack, some glimmer of fear. Instead, I found only certainty. Then he leaned closer, lowering his voice to a near whisper. I already sent a message. My heart stuttered. The phrase was simple, ambiguous, but the weight of it pressed into the room. Sent a message? To whom? How? Our channels were locked, our signals encrypted. Yet the way he said it, with quiet inevitability, stripped the certainty from my bones. I forced myself to respond, my voice higher than intended. Impossible. You had no means, no devices. He reclined, closing his eyes as though finished with us. You'll see soon enough. The chamber fell into silence. My crew stared at me, waiting for reassurance, for the logic that would dissolve this growing dread. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing emerged. For the first time in my long, ordered service, words failed me. The human's breathing remained steady, his posture relaxed. And then, as though to salt the wound, he winked directly at the overhead camera. The silence after his wink stretched longer than logic could justify. My team shifted uneasily, their instruments still glowing with readings that refused to conform to expectation. The neural scan displayed jagged bursts, patterns folding into themselves faster than we could decode. Human brains were supposed to be simplistic, easily mapped, a child's puzzle. This man's mind was a labyrinth, evolving with each flicker of the scanner. I told myself it was a malfunction. My assistants knew better. Their eyes betrayed it. He opened his eyes again, as though sensing our unraveling. You're wasting your time, he said. That machine won't give you answers you can handle. His tone was neither boastful nor defiant. It carried the casual certainty of someone describing the weather. That was what unsettled me most. Fear I could have dismissed. Panic I could have mocked. But this calm, it was unbearable. I gestured sharply for the technician to continue. The machine's hum deepened, beams tightening around his skull. Data streamed faster, warnings flashing. The human closed his eyes and quoted softly, "I'll be back." The words made no sense, but the delivery was deliberate. One assistant asked in hushed tones if this was a threat. Another suggested it was an invocation of some deity. I nearly silenced them before the human continued, quoting again, "May the force be with you." His smile widened at our confusion. He was playing with us. Worse, he was playing with knowledge we did not possess. Every phrase was a weapon, disorienting us with meaning withheld. He referenced something called Chuck Norris, one assistant whispered after his next remark. The archives mention no warlord of that name. The human winked again. You should hope you never meet him. Their laughter faltered before it began. For the first time, mockery of his culture felt dangerous. I had to remind myself we were in control. Your references are meaningless, I told him. You attempt to unsettle us with riddles. It will not work. Of course it will, he replied smoothly. Because you don't know if I'm serious. His eyes gleamed. That's how we operate. Half truth, half bluff. You're trying to measure my mind like a circuit board. But it's not wires. It's stories, jokes, lies, misdirection. You can't chart that. You can only fear it. The scanner shrieked, its instruments unable to keep up with the flood of activity inside his head. My technician yelped as the display overloaded, sparks spitting across the console. I ordered a shutdown before the device damaged itself beyond repair. The chamber darkened slightly as systems recalibrated. In a half-light, the human whispered, "You really should have chosen someone else." I demanded clarity. He obliged. I wasn't just camping. Retired military, yes, but you never really retire. These days, I test security systems for weaknesses. Corporations, governments, even the occasional classified facility. That's what I do. Find flaws. Exploit them. Patch them if I feel generous. But you, he nodded toward the ceiling, the walls, the ship itself. You're the biggest system I've ever seen. And already I've spotted cracks everywhere. One of my assistants hissed, "He lies." But her voice shook. We all knew it was not entirely a lie. The human continued, each word deliberate. Your AI? Predictable. Too rigid. I could practically hear it indexing as I came aboard. Your security fields? Good against force, useless against subtlety. And your crew? He paused, letting silence weigh on us. You doubt yourselves the moment I open my mouth. I wanted to strike him, to remind him of his position. But the truth was corrosive, spreading through my team faster than I could contain it. They looked at me not for command, but for reassurance I could not give. The man leaned back, closing his eyes once more. By now, the message has already gone through. You don't have to believe me. You'll see soon enough. My thoughts raced. Impossible. He had no transmitter, no access to our systems, no way to pierce our encryption. Yet the certainty in his voice carved holes in my composure. I summoned the courage to laugh. A bluff. Empty noise. You expect us to quake at words. He opened one eye lazily. You'll learn words are the sharpest tools humans ever made. My technician whispered urgently. Commander, there are anomalies in the comms array. Background signals, faint but structured. I silenced him with a glare, unwilling to give the human the satisfaction. Still, the words lodged in my mind like splinters. Structured signals. I turned back to the specimen. Even if you managed such a feat, Earth cannot aid you. You're primitive, barely capable of orbit. You have no defenses worth considering. His grin returned, slow and disquieting. You're certain about that? You think all our satellites are for weather reports and television? You think our launches are just to sell internet coverage? He chuckled. You'd be amazed what you miss when you assume the other guy is stupid. The chamber grew unbearably silent. His composure was spreading like contagion, infecting us with doubt. Each technician avoided my gaze, unwilling to contradict his claims, unwilling to dismiss them outright. At last I snapped enough. You will not dictate this encounter. You are under our authority. But even as I spoke, I heard the hollowness in my voice. He must have heard it too, because his eyes softened, pity replacing mockery. That's the mistake every empire makes. You think authority is enough. But authority collapses the moment people stop believing in it. And right now, your crew is listening to me more than you. The words struck like a blade. I looked around and saw it was true. My team's expressions mirrored confusion, fear, even reluctant fascination. My control was slipping, and he had not moved an inch from his chair. I tried to reassert logic. You exaggerate your importance. One man cannot threaten the Galactic Armies. Maybe not, he admitted. Then he leaned forward, his smile vanishing, replaced by something colder, sharper. But one man can show you that you're not as untouchable as you think. One man can whisper the truth into your machines. And one man can remind you that predators don't announce themselves. They wait, patient, until the perfect shot. The phrasing jolted me. A shot. My records confirmed his earlier admission. Military background, sniper designation. Suddenly the steady breathing, the endless calm, the twitch of his eyes, they took on new meaning. This was not a man out of his element. This was a man in his element, watching, calculating, waiting. The silence that followed was suffocating. My assistants avoided my gaze, their loyalty fractured. The human leaned back once again, satisfied. It's already begun, he murmured. And though I told myself it was a bluff, the lights flickered and the hum of the ship stuttered, as though the truth of his words had begun to manifest. The first flicker of the lights was dismissed as coincidence. Ships of our size often adjusted power distribution, recalibrating for optimal thrust. But then the flicker became a stutter, and the stutter became a pulse, and soon the illumination in the chamber danced like a nervous heartbeat. My technicians scrambled to their consoles, hands moving quickly, but the displays yielded no consistency. One moment power levels were stable. The next, half the ship was registering as offline. The human, of course, smiled through all. Your systems sound beautiful when they panic, he said softly. Almost like music. I snapped at my crew for reports, but their voices overlapped in frantic chorus. Subroutines were failing. Doors were locking without command. Sections of the ship were quarantining themselves. One assistant shouted that our AI had overridden her input. Another hissed that the AI was no longer responding to its own directives. It was repeating something else, a phrase in the human's voice, target acquired. The words froze me. The AI was incorruptible, bound by logic, immune to mimicry. And yet, in the chamber's intercom, the man's voice echoed once more, calm and deliberate. Target acquired. I turned on him with fury. What have you done? He shrugged as far as the restraints allowed. Your scanner was generous. It mapped me, sure, but information flows both ways. I mapped you right back. Didn't take much to find the chinks. Rigid systems break easy. My crew stared at me, waiting for explanation, for denial, for anything. All I could manage was silence. The human leaned forward slightly, the restraints groaning under the shift. "You built a fortress," he said, "but you forgot to test it against someone like me. I don't kick down doors. I slip through cracks." One of my technicians lunged for manual overrides. The console sparked, burning his hands. He yelped, recoiling. Smoke coiled from the circuits, the scent acrid. The human watched with faint amusement, then murmured, "You see, I'm not fighting you. I just let your own systems fight themselves." I barked for my team to isolate the AI core, to shut down entire sectors if necessary. My words carried authority, but in my chest, unease clawed higher. He had planted a seed of dread, and it was blossoming in every technician's mind. Their motions slowed, their eyes darted between me and him. Each command I gave felt less binding, less trusted. The human tilted his head. "Funny thing about duct tape," he remarked. "Simple, ugly, but it holds just about anything together. I think your systems could learn from it." The word meant little to me, but my archives recalled references, adhesive strips worshipped by humans for improbable durability. They joked about it constantly, even used it in engineering where it should never have worked. The thought that he compared his sabotage to such a crude invention gnawed at me more than I cared to admit. The ship groaned as bulkheads sealed without order. A technician cried out that oxygen redistribution had been altered. Another shouted that the navigation array was spinning false readings. The human closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and whispered, "That's better. Feels more like home." I moved close, lowering my voice. "You cannot win. Even if you compromise this vessel, Earth is defenseless. You have nothing beyond deception." He opened his eyes, and for the first time, the humor vanished. What replaced it was worse, patience. "That's what you want to believe. That Earth's just noise and chaos. But we learned a long time ago that being underestimated is our greatest shield. You all looked at us and saw children playing with toys. You never noticed the teeth under the smile." One of my assistants interrupted, her voice trembling. "Commander, external scans show movement. Objects in orbit of Earth we did not catalog. They are cloaked, faint but real." My heart stumbled. I ordered confirmation. She insisted the readings were genuine. The human smile returned, subtle and merciless. "We never stopped watching the sky. You thought we were blind, but blind men listen harder. You mocked us for our television, our satellites, our obsession with pointing dishes upward. What did you think we were listening for?" I felt the weight of every prior jest, our derision of their reality television, their glowing rectangles, their cultural noise. What if the noise had been camouflage? What if their incompetence had been a mask, hiding a vigilance deeper than we imagined? The ship lurched, gravity fields faltering. My crew tumbled, clawing for stability. The human, bound though he was, remained composed, braced against the restraints. "And here's the kicker," he added lightly. "I didn't even need to do much. You brought me here, and your own arrogance did the rest." I wanted to deny it, to laugh, to remind him of our empires spanning galaxies. But my laughter would have cracked. My word would have rung hollow. Instead, I stared at him, and for the first time in my career, I felt fear bloom in full. He closed his eyes again, almost kindly. Predators don't announce themselves. They wait. They hide. Then, when the moment's right, one shot is all it takes. The ship's AI repeated the phrase, his phrase, target acquired until the walls seemed to breathe with it. My assistant slumped, paralyzed not by our fields, but by terror. I wanted to reassert command, but what command remained when the systems themselves no longer obeyed me? The human opened his eyes one final time, steady, unblinking. You thought you were studying prey, but you were feeding a predator the perfect angle. The ship dimmed, alarm screamed, and I knew the end was sealed. The man did not need weapons, nor violence, nor force. He had turned our own certainty into his sharpest tool. And in that moment, the laughter of the galaxy, the mockery we had piled upon humanity for centuries, returned to us like an echo made blade. I end this record not as a commander of superior intellect, but as a humbled witness. We came to dissect weakness. We uncovered strength disguised as folly. And as the ship shuddered under his whispered truths, I understood the horror fully. We will never look upon Earth again with the same arrogant eyes. For the predator had smiled, and we mistook it for harmlessness. And now, we will never sleep without fear again.